My name is Patty Richards. I'm the Vice Chair of the Underhill Selectboard, and I call this meeting to order December 12th. What's the date? December 12th, 2024. Our first item on the agenda is to call the meeting to order, which I've just done, and to ask for adjustments to the agenda. Are there adjustments?
Just the one that I circulated to add Parker Ripley, Forest Fire Warden, to talk about the burn permit subscription that we did last year. And I'm suggesting we add him after Vermont Forest Parks and Rec.
Okay, we will add that accordingly. Any other adjustments to the agenda? And I'll make a note that Dan Steinbauer is in person with me, and Maureen Collins-Kolb is on virtually. Bob Stone and Dan Kelsey were not able to make it today, just for the record. Okay, our first item is opening public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment in the audience? All right, seeing none in the audience. Anybody online that would like to comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, we will move along. Next on our agenda is the Vermont Forest.
Excuse me? Somebody's waving.
Someone's waving at MW.
No, that's Mansfield Television. No.
Hi.
She's good.
I just wanted to make a quick public comment.
Okay, go ahead. The floor is yours.
I just want to say I'm very sad to see that there's no artwork on the walls tonight. So I hope that's going to be changed. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we will now move on to the Vermont Forest Parks and Recreation.
Please come up.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Gunnar Nurmi. I'm the Land Acquisition Coordinator with the Vermont Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. I'm here tonight to discuss a land conservation project that FPR is working on in the town of Underhill. And as part of our standard process for our acquisitions, we require going to the town, discussing projects, and ultimately seeking the town's support through the select board. The project that we're working on is working to acquire a 22-acre parcel of land in Underhill that is a total inholding within Mount Mansfield State Forest. It's owned by the George family and has been privately owned by them since the 1930s. After a few kind of back and forths in the past, trying to conserve this land as part of Mount Mansfield State Forest that didn't go anywhere, we're now back working with them, and everything's lining up, and we're working to purchase it as an addition to the state forest. The parcel is a 22-acre inholding located kind of at the terminus of Sunset Ridge. We call it Sunset Knob. Another name for the project is the Sunset Knob Inholding Project. So it's all high elevation between 2,200 feet and 2,650 feet. Located not too far from the Sunset Ridge hiking trail. It's a steep property speckled with forested seeps and rock outcroppings. There's some nice views from rock outcroppings at the height of land on there. And we're interested in acquiring it for a number of reasons. From an ecological perspective, it's some valuable high elevation forest land. Vermont Conservation Design identifies it as highest priority interior forest and connectivity block. And the forested seeps and rock outcroppings provide a lot of good habitat. Also, protecting inholdings in state forests and state land units is a priority for FPR right now. Inholdings being a privately owned parcel of land within a state land unit. And this one is a total inholding, meaning it's surrounded on all four sides by Mount Mansfield State Forest. And there's no legal access to the parcel. So it's just kind of a standalone parcel in the middle of the state forest. Protecting inholdings is a priority for us for a number of reasons. It eases our management burdens. There's less boundaries out there for us to maintain and paint and steward. And in general, protecting inholdings normally helps prevent forest fragmentation along the edges of our state forests and kind of keep them intact as the large connected landscapes they're intended to be. And Mount Mansfield State Forest being a large 40,000 something acre protected forest, we're trying to close up all the gaps we can. This project will also help support a large federal grant that we have for the conservation of 3,700 plus acres in Woodbury, Vermont. The value of this property will serve as match to that grant. So even though it's just 22 acres here in Underhill, its acquisition will help support a much larger conservation project elsewhere in the state. So yeah, that's the nuts and bolts. Any questions?
Thank you very much for that presentation. I'm just going to note in your letter to us and material in our packet that it states if acquired the Forest Parks and Recreation, if acquired by the Forest Parks and Recreation, the property would be open to the public for dispersed recreation and would be managed as part of the Mount Mansfield State Forest. So it's open to not only other folks in the state, but also Underhill residents.
Correct, yes, of course.
Via what you've stated. And also, I also want to just note that you also state essentially the Forest Parks and Recreation does not pay property taxes for the land under its ownership, but it does make an annual payment in lieu of taxes that is designed to pay the towns the same amount of municipal taxes they would have received in the year of acquisition had the parcel remained in private ownership.
Correct.
So essentially, the financial impact to the town is very minimal. That the educational tax is paid by the entire, for that parcel, the education tax piece would be paid by the entire state of Vermont, and Underhill residents would pick up their small share of that.
Yep.
So the financial impact to the town is, I would say, minimal or negligible. Is that fair characterization?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's a good summary.
And I would add that we have the support of Jericho Underhill Land Trust, who's here tonight, as well as the Underhill Conservation Commission in this project as well.
I'm just going to ask a general question for Brad. Is there any con associated with this sale, and from our perspective, that we can think of? I can only think of positives.
I can only think of positives. First of all, as Gunner's described here, the parcel is above, it's mostly above 2,000 feet. It's even
entirely above 2,000
entirely.
feet.
So first of all, logging is prohibited above 2,500 feet, which the upper half is 2,500 feet. But then more importantly is no development can occur in Underhill above 1,500 feet. So while this parcel might appear to be landlocked, that's probably the case. Nobody could essentially do anything with it anyway.
Okay.
And I highly doubt if anybody really even knows the exact location of it, including the state of Vermont. So by picking it up, then it eliminates all questions of boundaries. It just becomes an inclusive holding. So I don't think there's any downside to not supporting this acquisition.
Thank you very much for that. Maureen, did you have any questions? Oops.
Oop, lost her.
Wrong button.
We lost you, Maureen. Oh, there you come back.
Sorry, I meant to turn on my microphone instead. I turned off my camera. Is that better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear. It's the family has initiated this transfer. Is that correct?
Yes, they have. What do you mean?
The owners of the property are reached out and that they're in favor of the transfer happening and
yes,
that's their wishes to move forward with it. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this seems like a great plan. And looking at the map, it really is kind of amazing that it's not already owned and part of the state forest. So this really just seems like a smart, forward-moving choice. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we authorize signature of the letter proposed by the state of Vermont for the Underhill Town Select Board to support this property transfer. And that's all you're asking of us today. So I'm going to make a motion that we authorize signature of that letter. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
I'll email you the letter.
Sounds good.
Parker Ripley, Underhill Forest Fire Warden. Last March, April timeframe, I met with Bob, Brad, you were there, Amanda was there, and burnpermits.com. And at that time, we moved to go with an online burn permit platform that has worked very well this year. This year, we've had 322 permits as of today that have been registered online, with 184 townspeople users have a account. I would like to see this go forward next year and on from there. It's takes a lot of the phone calls at middle of the day while working away. I can see them all. So we would need to purchase another 5,000 credits, which is $500 for the upcoming year. And would like to see if we could put that in the budget going forward so we can keep that process going.
Are you all done, or?
Unless anybody has any questions.
Do we have credit? Just one quick thing.
Yeah.
We can reuse credits, right? If we don't use them all, I think we can.
Yes, we have 178 credits left.
Right,
So
they
that's
don't expire.
500. It's for 500 burn permits.
Right. So they don't expire in the event?
They do
They're
not
not used, they do
expire.
not
So in a
expire.
few years down the road, we may have, that extra that we haven't used, and there may be a year that we don't have to buy any.
Mhm. I support putting this in the budget for the full budget. Roll this up into the budget, the $500.
Jennifer, was it in the budget last year? Or did we add it?
I think it came up after we already had the budget, but I don't know.
I don't know if they can hear you from over there. You want to scoot over? Or, I think we did it after, and it just came out of the contingency, I think. But we could stick it under. I don't think Parker has a line, but we can find a proper place for it. And it probably shouldn't be like, I just wanted to clarify that it's, so Parker is our Underhill fire warden. Jericho has their own fire warden. Probably technically, you don't even need to be a member of the fire department. You are, but.
Correct. You do not need to be a member of the fire department.
Right. So we issue our own permits, kind of standalone from the fire department, right? Is the way to look at it. Some people might say, oh, why don't we just combine this in the fire department's budget, but it's really not their purview. It's our permit that we're issuing under, that Parker's issuing.
As a fire warden, I'm under the state of Vermont. So the fire department has nothing. As fire warden, I'm through the state of Vermont, Forest and Parks.
And the town of Underhill.
And the town of Underhill. It has nothing to do with the fire department. The fire department doesn't have any control or say over any of that.
I just had a
Procedurally-
question.
Go ahead, Maureen.
Sorry. Are they purchased in units of 500? You can't purchase them in smaller units. Is that correct?
Correct. The 5,000 credits, which is $500, is the lowest
Got it.
number you can do.
I see. Okay. Thank you. And I agree. I think this should be supported as an annual line item. Then I think that makes sense, especially since it seems like this is working well. I think that makes sense to be its own line item each year in the budget.
Having had a personal experience with this program this year in getting a burn permit, I really support it. I think it's really good. Not only does it save you time, but it clarifies all the issues to the application process. And it really makes it smooth. Amanda did a wonderful job in working through that and setting it up too. So I support it wholeheartedly.
That's great to hear that experience. Do we procedurally need to take action, or I
You
think
could just make a motion.
you're feeling support for this to go into the budget, but we'll vote on the budget as a package, but you're hearing consensus that we'll put this in the budget.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, just
Okay.
to see if we can get that in the budget and move forward. So every year, it's not coming in saying, hey, can we do another 500 or, whatever it may be.
And your position's 100% voluntary, correct?
I get
Or you get
a
a stipend?
mileage stipend when we have our annual forest fire warden meeting. And usually it's mileage from my house in Underhill. And it's been, last year was in Essex Town. The year before was in St. Albans. So it's very, very minimal.
Thank you for your service.
You want to kick that?
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you for your service very much.
So Jen, make a note, put that in the budget. Awesome. Thank you very much, Parker. Okay, next on our agenda is the town highway items. Russ?
Okay, good evening. So first thing on my agenda is our blacktop truck or pavement truck. In your packet, you'll see a memo I put together and put a picture of the blades that we utilize on that particular truck. And the reasoning for this particular blade setup is, as our blacktop in town is not all like Irish settlement, it has a lot of grooves and uneven surfaces. These blades move up and down in with the contour of the road, so it scrapes the blacktop a lot better than a straight solid steel blade. And these are rubber blades with carbide inserts in the bottom, and we had to replace these once so far with the life of the truck, which is not too old, but so we utilized the spare set that we had. So because this truck is the only one with this, we'd like to have a set on hand, so when they do fail and they do need to be replaced, we can be ready to go and get them done. We're only able to get one price for these due to, sorry I didn't have it in the packet, but I did contact Nordic Blades to try to find other vendor sources to get comparable pricing other than Viking and Williston. However, this letter here states and will show that they are the only dealer that we are able to purchase from because they're proprietary. So other dealers cannot sell to Vermont customers. So I have this copy and I can leave it with Brad to get it to wherever need be. But
So you attempted to go through the competitive bid process, but found it's only one vendor servicing for the state.
correct.
Any questions?
What was used before, or didn't we ever have these?
Before, when this truck was purchased in 22, before that, it was just the straight steel blades with carbide in them that we utilized before. And then when we purchased this truck, being the blacktop truck, it's kind of a new, I wouldn't say how new it was, but probably the last 5 years they've been out. And it was brought to our attention. We knew like Jericho runs them and other area towns run them, and they were having very good luck with them on the pavement. And so when we purchased that truck, we ended up purchasing this style blade and to try them, and they do actually work very, very well. And it also cuts down on salt usage as well because it scrapes so much better.
Besides doing a better job scraping, is it also kinder to the pavement?
I would actually say it probably is, Dan, yes, because it is it's basically a rubber block with carbide in the middle, and they're 1 foot sections on an 11-foot plow, and they all move individually. So they just kind of form to the road.
Mm-hmm.
They're expensive, but in the scheme of things, it will actually saves us money on salt as well. So it's just gotta, one of the things.
I just had a quick question. How long has the existing set of blades been utilized, and how frequently are they expected to need to be replaced?
Yeah, the last set we put on was, I don't remember the exact time, but it was last winter we put them on. So that was probably a year, they're probably a yearly item that we have to, and again, it all depends how much it's on the ground. Yeah, if we don't get a lot of snow, they'll last longer, but the last 2 weeks, it's been going every day. So the more they get used, the more they're going to wear out. They're definitely a wear item for sure.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'll put it so we can take action. I'll put a motion on the table that we authorize the highway department to purchase what do we call this?
Nordic blades.
Special moving blades, the Nordic blades as proposed in our packet for up to $2,106.50. Do you need to have any flexibility in that price for any surprise things?
No.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Dan beat you, Maureen. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0.
Thank you. The next item that I have is new tires for the pickup. We thought that we could get through this winter with the winter tires that we have had since the pickup was new, which is it's a 2020. However, we've been having a great difficulty on the goat path where we can't even plow up the goat path because they don't grip. So really getting to look at them, we realized how low they actually were. 5/30 seconds, if that means anything to anybody. So we did some research on some tires that others have used, and we would like to go with the Bridgestone Blizzak tires purchased through Pete's Tire Barn through the state of Vermont tire contract, and they're about a day away, so it wouldn't take too long to get. So our thought was that we could, because our summer tires are wore down as well, we thought we could put these winter tires on our rims for our summer tires and run these tires that are on the truck currently during the summer to finish wearing them out in the summer. But it's been very unsafe to try to plow with it. It's just, we never thought it would be like this. So
I have to ask, where's the goat path?
it's the Maple Leaf from Mountain Road up to
got it.
up to Jennifer's.
Thank you for that clarification.
It is slippery, isn't it, Jen?
Any questions? Questions for Russ on this? The contract with the state do we receive a discount for purchasing through the state contract?
Yeah, so the state does their due diligence and does their pricing bidding process like they do with trucks and a lot of other components. Some things they allow towns to tag on to or lets the vendors sell to the towns at their price.
Mm-hmm.
And this just happens, the tires are in that. Same we do with our truck tires, big truck tires as well, and caps we do through the state contract.
So rather than bid this out, through a competitive bid process, we're using the state's process for the competitive side.
Correct.
So we're not going officially through the full process of getting bids and such.
Correct. They did all that homework for us.
Okay. Any questions, Maureen or Dan?
No.
Thank you. All right, hearing none, to move us forward, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the tire purchase through the Vermont tire contract with Pete's Tire Barn in Williston in the amount of $1,203.40. Is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Oh, Dan beat you again, Maureen. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0.
Okay,
Next on
thank you.
your list.
And the last thing I've got is some exciting news that our new plow truck is well in process at Viking Surveys in Williston. And Ken and I went down to review the truck and go over the build and make sure they're putting lights where they need to be and the controls where they need to be and so on. Just make sure things are what we're planning on buying. And after going over the truck with the folks at Viking, we did find a few things that we wanted to change or add or remove from the original proposed build. And the quotation is in your packet, and I can go over that real quickly, or if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. But there's a couple of the first two things. Just to back up, we based this truck off the last truck, which is Scott's truck, the pavement truck. And a couple of the things on there that we don't need on this truck that we do on a pavement truck. The tarp arms, it's a $400 credit. It's a tensioning system that we don't need on that truck, so that's a removal. The wing arms don't need to be shortened on this truck, being a dirt truck. And we add, each truck carries a long crowbar or pinch bar, whatever you want to call it, but it's about a 5-foot long bar that we carry on the trucks for a multitude of reasons. So we wanted to add, some of these things we would do in-house afterwards, but now's really the time when you start welding onto things and then it's painted versus us getting it and then weld on, then the factory paint is not as good as, when it's all welded and done and painted. So that $200 to add the system to hold that bar on the truck. The step system that comes on the side of the body that if we need to access to get into the body is a very small step, and it's hard to get 2 feet on it at the same time to transfer to the side of the truck to climb in. So the last trucks we had built, they redesigned it and made a much bigger, safer step to be able to access into the body. So that is $460. And then we always add a bar light in between the plow lights for extra lighting. And again, it's just as cheap or just cost effective to have it all done. The wiring's done all at the same time. We're not splicing into wiring. Have it done right there, which is $500. And then there's a vibrator system that goes underneath the bottom of the body. So when you dump material, if like ditch material gets stuck in the body, it vibrates the body, so it releases that material to come out. We got one on Scott's truck. We thought it was in that build, but when we bought Scott's truck, that was added on after. So doing the same thing we're doing right now, it was added on at the time. So it's a necessity really, because we do so much ditching, and it just helps get all the material out when you get wet, gucky stuff. So that total is $2,290, and that could go right onto the loan because they're still within our budgeted amount of the truck, not to exceed. So we wouldn't have to do this out of pocket. Otherwise, or out of a line item, it would be right in the loan with the truck. So I'd like to get authorization to make these changes as the truck is being built. And when it comes, it'll be all ready to go.
Yeah, I am in support of this, especially since it's part of the budgeted amount for the truck. We're not exceeding the budgeted amount, so we can go through the borrowing process versus an expense. Dan or Maureen, do you have questions?
I do not.
Hearing no questions, I'm going to put a motion on the table that we approve the proposal for an additional $2,290 for the new truck, new dump truck?
Yeah.
The new dump truck. It's within the bond allowance of $290,000. We're authorizing an additional $2,290. Is there a second?
I'll second.
You got that one, Maureen. That was yours. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0. Thank you, Russ.
And just while I've got the floor, I don't know, I sent you all an email this morning. Text you, sorry, Patty. We brought the 2018 truck down to Allegiance today for some repairs. I didn't know how excessive it was going to be. Had some major light issues going on with the truck, like lack of lights. We did our due diligence in-house to try to pinpoint it, but it was so complex that we could not do it. Good news is we brought it down at about 8 o'clock this morning, and we picked it up at 3 this afternoon. So it's all fixed. And so they did very well for us to get that taken care of. And it has been a lot of repairs going on. Mostly we're able to do in-house, but seems to be everything's popping up at once here with wearable items. So we're doing a lot of that in-house, so we should be saving on labor.
Thank you very
So,
much.
thank you, guys.
Let's move on now to the Pleasant Valley Road Radar speed sign. Brad, you want to tee us up, or?
Sure. So Russ came in on Monday morning and wondering where the speed sign was, hoping that I had it, and I didn't. So it turns out that someone stole the speed sign on Pleasant Valley. And so I immediately called the state police, and then I called All Traffic Solutions that deals with the speed sign. That was the one particular sign that we didn't have the cloud package on. So our other signs on Park Street have a cloud package, which includes cameras and theft prevention. Like if somebody were to remove the sign, we'd get pictures of them. However, the good thing about all these signs is every 24 hours at midnight, they ping in to All Traffic Solutions with a location. So what the thieves didn't know is we tracked their location in Burlington to the building where we thought the unit was. So the Vermont State Police made an inquiry. Nothing came about that, or nothing became of that inquiry, except for the next day, the sign miraculously reappeared hanging from the bracket. So the bracket, so in order to get this off, it's locked on the bottom, and Russ and I have the keys. But in order to get this off, they had to bend the bracket and really twist and pull to get this sign off. And you can see the damage on the picture I gave you, damage to the sign. I think, so just to back up a little bit, when I did call All Traffic Solutions, they immediately marked the sign as stolen. So if somebody tried to reactivate it, they wouldn't be able to. They also enacted the cloud feature that we pay for. But the problem is the cloud feature didn't kick on until midnight, and the unit had already been returned. So if they had hung on to it a little while longer, I could have snapped pictures of them, or whoever it was. I would have had photographic evidence. So we really have no evidence. We have no evidence. I think it's going to be tough to make a case based on the location that it pinged in at, since we don't have anybody, we didn't catch anybody red-handed with it. And I did get a price to repair the unit. Basically, they put a new shroud on it for $1,250 and $140 shipping. But, you know, sure, he had to.
How much is a new one?
New one's around 4,000 roughly.
Okay. That's
So,
substantial.
but you know, we got talking and amongst ourselves here in the office, and then Russ, and it's like, you know, maybe we could just try to. I think it is functioning still. We'll have to test it, but it lights up. It's functioning. So instead of paying the money, let's just maybe try to do a little straightening up ourselves. We may have to retrofit a different bracket, right? But if it's operational, if we can just get it set up and see if it's operational, we can go on from there. And then we talked about adding these cloud packages in the next fiscal year, so we could add the cloud package to it. But I'm just thinking that's quite a bit of money to get it fixed if it's still functioning and maybe not aesthetically great on the backside. The front is still all intact. You know, it looks just like normal.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. Let's see if we can get it back up there, working with a few scrapes and dents in it, and go from there.
And I think we'll just kind of have to let it go, unfortunately, with I like a good crime scene, but I don't think we have the evidence to, you know, really pursue it.
Probably cost us more money to find out than it would save us.
Just glad we got it back, right? So.
Exactly.
I wonder if we should put a little sign on the bottom of these that people can read if they're close, you know, like smile.
Yeah, smile you're on camera.
For your picture.
Yeah.
You know, to discourage future theft.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Hopefully it was just a one-off thing. So, okay. So if that's basically what happened there, I just wanted to make you aware.
Okay.
And we did not make an insurance claim. I don't think with our deductible, I just don't think that's a wise decision either.
Agreed.
So.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is Downs Road landowner concerns.
And Butler's here. I did add some things to your packet. Ben had sent some photographs. Unfortunately, Maureen can't see those, but they're really not that exciting. They're just pictures of the roadway.
Okay.
And then I did, there is a letter Tristan Butler submitted, basically just, and we could read it. So Maureen knew, but it basically just talks about the work that they did on the road. But Ben asked to be on the agenda, so.
Okay. Hi, Ben.
Good evening. My name is Ben Butler. And just on about Downs Road itself, but also the Class 4 roads together. There's been a long history of the roads just being like they are without change and without investment from the town at this point. And over this, I purchased a property on Downs Road in 2016, just to give you a little back history. And in 2018, we asked the select board to come up and look at it because at that point in the Class Road 4 kind of descriptions, it would cover any type of structures, so bridges or culverts. And then that was removed from that within a couple of months because it would have been an extreme investment for the town to replace the 5 culverts that were on that road. The select board did walk it. And then 2 or 3 years later, we've invested another almost $20,000 into that section of Class 4 road, and Tristan invested, I think it's just over 22 into it. So we're getting closer to, like $45,000 into that half mile of Class 4 road. And as we've built it up, when I was done, I had Robert Hill with his bulldozer make sure the road, we will put over 200 loads of, it was actually just repurposed gravel from Poker Hill Road up onto that section. And he did all the work. And then we had Kurt, who was on the select board at that time, kind of oversee the project. So it was up to essentially his okay, and it worked, and everything was done. And on this section, there wasn't any really formal things that were supposed to take place. And as he built up the road, he only added maybe 2 inches of heavy stone on top of road fabric. So now we can't grade the road essentially, and plowing it's so large rocks, your plow immediately catches and you're right back into the road fabric, and it's sticking up probably in like 20 spots over that half mile that the road fabric's already through. So there's no like top skirting on the road. So it's not in a place that can be graded in the spring, or you'd have to really get it frozen this year to plow it. So we'd have to wait, probably till there's 2 to 3 inches of ice kind of built up on it and continue to drive on it. So it's not as functioning as well as it was last year. And just going up, if it's extremely rough, I was able to, easily drive 15, 20 miles an hour up that road. Now you're at 5 to 10 because it's so rough. So there's a dramatic kind of decrease in the speed you can travel, but also the roughness of the road because he didn't have it graded. He was just spreading it with the tractor. So it just not up to the, I don't know. I was kind of set a high bar with just excellence and how things should be done. But I would ask the select board to at least set in some type of parameters as the class 4 roads are being invested in by homeowners on what needs to be done to them. Because I mean, it's longevity of, is the road going from a 4 class 4 road to a class 3 road, and we've invested, close to $40,000 to $45,000 into the road, just in material. That's not time, labor, removing trees. It's just a huge investment. And I just want to make sure it's done right and that it can be done with some type of a timeline, because Tristan did one section, then he's not going to do anything to the spring, but that leaves us the whole winter of driving over a rough road that I'm up there almost every day where he's not. So it's a lot more on me, maintaining the road and plowing the road. So it's frustrating to be put in the middle of it. So maybe a signed contract with the class 4 roads. And I sat on the class 4 road committee, and there's nothing really been done with that as far as I know. Over the last 6-8 years, it's become a hot topic at points. And I would just ask the select board to somehow take it at least a step forward in some areas, whether it's removing roads or documents that on maintaining them, because right now there's still nothing. And it's extremely frustrating, especially on my part, owning property, investing in it, and then seeing it go, okay, it's actually worse now, which is unfortunate. So I'm definitely looking for the select board's help in moving the process forward, and also doing it where it's kind of a hard timeline, at least something that's a little bit more just set in stone. If you're going to do work on the road, these are the expectations, because it's, unfortunately, I think the investment he just did he needs to almost double the amount of stone to put on it, because it's so thin. It needs to have at least 5 to 6 inches of heavy stone put on top of it, just so it's some type of material, because you're already down to the road fabric.
Thank you very much. We did authorize the private landowner to do that work. He came in and requested permission to do it. We granted that, with working with Russ to make sure that he was doing the work in compliance with road standards. And Russ, have you had a chance to go out and see that work?
I did go out. I'll just back up a little bit as far as road standards. He had a plan of what he wanted to do, in which we obviously granted him that permission. Tristan was very good to me about relaying when they were working and how many loads they had brought in, so on, per day. I did not babysit the project by any means. He did say it was going to be a timeline process to get the job done throughout the winter months, or fall and winter, maybe even into spring, which makes it hard in the winter because you never know what the road's going to be like. Mm-hmm. So I went up there today, actually, and there's about 2-3 inches of snow on the road, which It's a little rough in places, but the snow probably helps some of that, I'm guessing. I went up to just below the gate and turned around, came back down.
Mhm.
So as far as putting it to road standards, I don't think we were, we're not going to put it to class 4 or class 3 standards by any means. I think the idea is to try to get some good base in there and top coat it, which was the original plan to top coat it. I truly think that, he spent some good money to get where he's at and needs to maybe catch up a little bit before he puts it. He does have plans of putting top coat on, but I don't know when that'll be, especially with snow. Versus plowing it, it would be good to probably keep packing it at this point, I would think. And then you mentioned the same thing, Ben, about getting it back in.
So the
But I
point,
never really
yeah,
traveled up there either prior to that, so.
the point I'm trying to make is we did authorize it, but it was with cooperation with our highway department to make sure it's being done properly. And we can talk with Russ about if there's anything additional that it would need. And as Russ said, it's not a class 3 road. So the standard for the road construction will be a little different because it is a class 4 road, but it will meet some level of review from our highway department.
It definitely needs top coat by all means, but.
And I forgot the other concern from in the pictures was yesterday was a great day. It rained a lot, and there was, I think, 2 spots where the water from the ditch, because the heavy stone was pushed into the ditch, that the water was now traveling up onto the road right to the edge of it and then coming back off. So there's, as it gets worse as a spring, it'll cause washouts on those spots. And it just having the right equipment to go back up for the mini excavator or whatever and pull it all back in. That was my last concern on that.
So just a little history back there. So when we reconstructed Poker Hill Road, 2 sections, a lot of loads were brought up to Downs Road. We had an agreement, a written agreement that they were going to take the material as is, what it was. And additionally, I was here that I believe that the town paid additional trucking. We paid for the trucking for some additional material to go up there versus another place where it was cited to go. So, so that kind of brought the road up, got the road up into the air a little bit. And then the process here was to put some bigger dense grade fabric and dense grade on top and then top it with gravel, and you'd have something that was built up in the air and potentially longer lasting than the road that was there. So I would just say that, yeah, a lot of material was donated and trucking was paid for by the town. I just want that on the record. That's all.
Yeah, they paid for one day. It was like $1,200. We had to pay for another, I think, 3 or 4 days to finish that. That was another like $3,000 or something like that.
Yeah, but the material was free. So,
Right.
yeah,
It was just
for what it
sure.
was worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or suggestions?
Just curious, did that material that we got off Poker Hill Road, did that work out okay?
Some of it did. There was multiple days we had to stop trucking because it was so full of clay. So it's definitely way better than it was. I mean, over 200 loads went up, and you can drive on it now. Before it was all ledge and pretty much impassable in the winter. Could not plow it. So now we got it to the point where it's at least you can drive up and have access throughout the winter to the multiple properties on the road.
The only thing I'd like just to add is if we do get some warm up again and it's not snow covered, I'll take another ride up and see about the fabric and so on. So keep an eye on that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And just as a note, we appreciate all the work that had gone into the Class 4 Road Commission. And that is a priority for the select board moving forward, is to continue to take action on the recommendations of that report. So we really hear your concerns, and they really are extremely valid on all of the residents who live on Class 4 roads and all of the people who kind of need to use them to access for recreational purposes or whatever it might be. And we really are going to be working hard on figuring out the right way to move forward on those recommendations and starting to implement that. And trying, you know, as you said, like we want there to be standards and recommendations that are clear cut for all residents to know what to expect on the different roads. So thank you for coming in today and sharing your concerns with us.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you for that added information, Maureen. That was very helpful. Thank you.
I just had one just suggestion or something you might want to consider. Is there little sections that are problem areas, or is it the whole thing?
I would say close to the half mile, all the way up to Tristan's.
So the whole thing. There's not
thing.
certain areas that
No,
they had a little fine grade on it would be better. It's the whole thing.
It's the whole thing. Because it's all heavy 3-inch stone. The worst part is the first rise, then it gets a little smoother.
Yes. Just a second. So we did the fall well monitoring for the old landfill site. And we have the fall report from Bob Ross, and he did mention that no changes. Everything looks very consistent with the previous data we've collected. Bob did reach out to the state regarding monitoring and, you know, do we need to continue to monitor? And the state is recommending that we continue to monitor for the time being. And I've asked him for a updated quote for next year's monitoring. In the fall, in addition to the groundwater monitoring, we also, they do a full test on the town garage water, and I can give Russ a copy, but again, that test was favorable for drinking. Not saying you have to drink it, but there's
Get past the smell there. You're all set.
no contamination in the well. And I'll share that copy of that with Russ.
We still provide drinking water that's
Yes.
not tap water to the garage, correct?
Right.
All right, just for the record, to make sure that that's noted.
Yeah. So if you don't have any questions, I'll make sure we forward those reports off to the state so they have them on file.
Okay. Brad, on his letter, he references 4 items that were exceeded in the sample. The primary groundwater enforcement for vinyl chloride. Can't read this next one. Naphthalene, magnesium, and arsenic were exceeded in the sample. There's 4 lines that say exceeded.
These are the same elements we've
So we're
been
reporting on
dealing
that
with.
consistently?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking for, major swings in those
No
different elements, I
mitigation
think.
requirements?
No.
Okay, yeah, got
No.
it.
But we just, until we either see a decrease in that or a rapid change, I think we just keep monitoring. But
Okay.
they're looking for big spikes. You know, if something
Got it,
spiked up,
yes.
then we would maybe have to look at some kind of mitigation. But right now, everything's steady.
Okay. Any questions on the report?
I always like to see low concentrations of benzene and other glamorous things. There was a part of that former landfill that vehicles were just dumped. Probably not precautions were taken to, remove all the fuel and everything. I kind of know where that is, and it's related to that one test well. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on that. And it may never go away, but the fact that it's low and it's not affecting the water is of great value. And while I would like to get away, and that's always been the goal of the state telling us, oh, you don't need to test anymore, you're good. I think it's, we're paying for misuse of the area in a way for a long time, but it's letting us know where the problem is, and we're keeping it safe.
Thank you, Dan. I agree with that wholeheartedly, that we should be continuing to test, even if the state says we shouldn't, just to keep an eye on things to make sure that there's not some.
Well, the state will continue to say that we should, so we don't have to make that decision
Yeah, right.
anytime in the near future, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Anton had reached out to me about considering.
Do you need authorization to
No, I'll just
submit this or anything?
If
Okay.
you accept the reports, I'll forward them off to the state.
All right, Maureen, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Is this your first time seeing this, Maureen? One of these?
I think we had done something on some report on the landfill before, but not, this is my first time seeing the one on the garage water testing.
Yeah.
Maybe the
but it's
landfill
all
report was something else, but yeah.
Right. It's all in relation to the old landfill that we thought would be a good idea to run up above the town garage. Nice view there. But
It's very lovely.
Yeah. So I'll make sure that the state gets that, or actually Bob does it anyway. I just basically say the select board reviewed it and please forward and he copies me and we have it for the record. But Anton had reached out about trying, maybe considering a Porta-Let at Casey's Hill parking lot. I don't have any material, but I think Peter Davis is here to speak to this, right? Is that why you're here, Peter? Yeah. So if you could come up.
Hit this.
Yeah, so it's green.
Peter Davis, I live at 15 Warbrook Lane, and for anybody that doesn't know, certainly Brad does, I'm the individual that has sort of led the project to get Tomasi's Meadow groomed for Nordic skiing. I took that project on 3 years ago. I personally bought a old snow machine, and all of this I coordinated with Anton. He basically told me to go for it, and so I volunteered to buy a machine and round up the grooming equipment and do it. And some of you may have noticed the skiing loop that we created in Tomasi's, and Will Walcott has been mowing it for us, or doing a prepared mowing in the fall to get it really closely mowed for the maximum low snow skiable depth. So that's a project we've been at for 3 years now. This is the beginning of the third year. I think by any measure, it's been pretty well received by the town, and Brad and I have worked pretty closely on some side projects, doing a little bit of earth moving by hand on one section of the trail to make it easier to groom and ski. So it's evolved, I personally feel, pretty nicely. In the middle, we pulled in or proposed to the Mansfield Nordic Club, the local ski club, if they would be interested in participating as the designated entity for the actual grooming, and not just me as an individual, as a volunteer. So that after some discussion, they agreed to do this. So officially, with the town's legal approval, they've been handed off the responsibility of doing the grooming. I still do it as a Mansfield Nordic Club member, and I'm training an assistant to help me do that. So I'm not the only person that is responsible for it. So that's evolved nicely as well. And this is the first beginning of the third year where I disposed of my personal machine, and now Mansfield's own machine is being used with the other equipment. And by the way, all of this equipment has been very generously stored by permission at 11 Mountain Road. There's a barn that she's allowed us to just pull the equipment in, store it. It's undercover, out of view, and very well protected and very easily accessible to the loop. So that's worked out really well. So it's become successful enough so that last year, the overflow parking on certain days on the weekends when the snow was good, there was too much participation or subscription, shall we say, to be accommodated by the cars last year in the parking lot, existing parking lot. So that prompted some expansion, which took place over the summer, and I think it basically doubled the parking, which it came out really well, and I think that is really within scale of the kind of participation that we anticipate. But as we approach this particular season, some unexpected, pressures on the meadow have emerged. Number one is the range, the Ethan Allen firing ranges, which is where the Mansfield Nordic Club principally trains during the week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, with all level, the junior, the racing juniors, the master skiers, and the youth league, the Bill Cook Ski League, which represents some, probably 70 to 80 active members. They usually do that at the range where there's man-made snow and lighted skiing. However, this year, the range is undergoing a pretty massive renovation for the biathlon range. If anybody's been up there, the Walker building, which is a fairly substantial building, it's about the size of this town hall building, they have, as of this past weekend, have torn it down, which is where we would go into use facilities and stay warm. So that's demoed, and they're under construction up there for a massive renovation, which has restricted the access for the club and also, by the way, the local high schools, which also use it regularly. So that currently is restricted and or closed. It's not 100% whether they're going to allow us limited access or not, but effectively it's restricted at least, and not available at all during December. So that's going to push, it has pushed the Bill Koch group, the youth league, the young skiers, to Tomasi's. Fortunately, we've had early snow, so it's been great, and we've been able to groom and accommodate that. So there'll be extra pressure, we anticipate, for participation, and while it's certainly not necessary, it would be really, I think, in the public health interest if there was a Porta-Let available for people to use while they're sledding, skiing, and only seasonally, because the summer use is nowhere near as much as the wintertime use. And I asked Anton what the process would be into getting a Porta-Let. He looked into the cost. It's about $130 a month, which includes a weekly service pump out. It's fairly typical across the different services that do this. And it would, there's some concerns I recognize in terms of how would you protect it from snow plowing? How would you protect it from the wind? And most importantly, I think many people would be offended by the visual impact of having a Porta-Let in this otherwise fairly serene setting. And I share those concerns. And one proposal I have for the group and the town is to locate the Porta-Let down on the east side below the parking, not in the parking lot at all, but in the lower area on the east side below the bank, which would put it out of view, not totally, but significantly. And certainly from the Pleasant Valley Road, Mountain Road, you'd see more of it, of course. And it would be very protected from the wind. And that's actually the area where I access the meadow from Mountain Road as well. So as long as I can get by there, it's easy to put or to have it in that spot. Additionally, I contacted Will Walcott, who has a tractor that he uses for mowing the field, and he would be happy to help out in terms of with his tractor and fork attachments to position the Porta-Let in any location that people decide to make it less visible and also less subject to any vandalism, because that's a concern. But I think it would be, the proposal would be to tuck it out of the way so it's not that attractive to any mischief.
Peter, if it was tucked out of the way, would it be accessible to be maintained by the Porta-Let company?
Right, so I checked on that, and as long as it's within 40 feet, they can easily pump it up. And that would, I think it would be more like 20 feet from, they would park in the parking lot and they could reach it.
Folks have questions, comments?
Sounds like you researched it pretty well.
I'm sorry?
Sounds like you researched it pretty well. And
Yeah, I'm pretty signed up for this project.
Yeah. And I like the fact that paying attention to where it's positioned, where it's accessible to the Porta-Let company, all that is good. And I certainly think it's a good idea to have, especially given the increased activity there. And it would be protected better, not right on the parking lot from the wind and from, the plowing and everything else, if it was in a spot. I can't picture that, but I'm sure that you've done a good job of nailing it down.
Yeah, I don't like looking at Porta-Lets either, but I think that would be a good solution. And Antoine felt comfortable that the rec committee had the funding in their budget to support it. It would only be through, perhaps March.
That was going to be my question. Yeah, of where the money for the monthly payments would come from. But it would be, the rec committee is proposing to cover the cost.
I didn't hear the question.
Yes, that's right, Maureen.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
You nailed it. You mentioned this in your discussion, the aesthetics of it. I would hate to have a giant porta potty somewhere in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Is there a schematic you could present to show us where it would be? I would like to visually see it, and I also would like to have Bob and Dan's input on this one, because wherever that Porta-Let is, it's going to be noticeable. My fear is. So it'd be great to just have you submit a schematic at our next meeting.
Yeah, we have a meeting coming up next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I was speaking with Anton about this very thing. I said, I think we're going to need a little more information probably, because he kind of just laid it on me. This is just a thought maybe for future years, but if you look at this nice little fence panels we have out around the propane tank, you know, you could simply put a 3-sided, you know, fence panels up, something nice and cedar, tuck the Porta-Let right in there, you'd never even see it if it was done properly. But not for this year maybe, but I'm sure the ground's not frozen where you're proposing it, but.
No, I have some pavers that I could put down and put it on.
Right. But I'm saying if you shielded it with a, you know, some kind of a nice cedar fence.
Some sort of visual screening.
Go in there. But I think what the board would like to see is a draw it on a map. And like I could provide you with a map if you wanted to come into the office. And
it would just help to see where placement would be. I get the idea of having a location for folks to go to the bathroom so that they're not going wherever on the field.
So Brad, would you visualize this in the actual parking surface or below?
I think your idea of getting it off down the hill, the last place you want is on a parking lot. Especially Russ doesn't want it there for plowing. And that would
an extra obstacle.
That would aesthetically look the worst.
Right.
But maybe, and then Anton and I also talked about maybe the south end of the meadow where we freeze in the parking lot.
The emergency, yeah.
However, someone sliding wouldn't be able to take advantage of that. Right. You want it for all users.
Yep.
So I think your idea is good. Off the beaten path, it'll get packed in enough. But come in tomorrow, I'll be here and we can get a map and then maybe bat around some ideas.
Yep. Do that.
And we'll put it on for Thursday.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay. So I'm coming back to the tech group managed care plan. So they've extended our current plan. So we pay them monthly right now for the plan we're on. And they've extended that plan to the end of December. So the increase in the plan was around $200-300, I think, given what you pared down what we were going to have in the plan, which I think, just to review quickly, was all the subscriptions we have. We were getting rid of the security awareness training, but we were going to do the vulnerability testing and the managed password part.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that came up between the time that I did this was the new planning position. So if that does come to fruition, we may want to add one more premium subscription to the email. So that's on the third page where we have 6 premium licenses. So that includes us here, Russ, so that planning would have one, zoning would have another. So I guess what I'm asking is for approval to sign this managed care plan going into calendar year 25 and bump up the premium from 6 to 7 people.
This is for the total of $1,621?
Yes. And well, it would be, it wouldn't be 1621 because we'd be adding one more seat. Yeah, so what might be better is if we could figure this out, I'll have him rewrite, we're covered to the end of the month, have him rewrite the quote so we know exactly what we're getting. But if you guys are on board with adding the 1 premium to 7, and then we'll go with the vulnerability testing and the managed password services. Those are both monthly charges. or not. I think the vulnerability testing, they were really trying to push that because they actually go out in these scary places on the dark web and see if we have any presence out there or what's going on. The managed password services are a thing. We all deal with tons of passwords here. It's crazy, and there are vulnerabilities there. I guess I could have him. I'll have him have 2 quotes. One without the add-ons and one with just the basic plan with the 7 premium packages, and you can consider it next time if that sounds like a good idea. I'll have multiple choices.
Okay, that sounds
How
good.
about that?
Any comments from others? We'll punt this for next week.
Yeah, but I'll have multiple choices and we'll pick one.
Okay, sounds good.
So the Harvest Crossing preliminary subdivision decision was appealed by the neighbors on Meadow Lane. So we have an appeal notification, and as typical, we usually enter an appearance. This isn't our fight at all. We gave preliminary approval, so it's up to the church to defend themselves. But as always, we enter an appearance, so we're notified of any correspondence.
That seems appropriate to me.
So I would just entertain a motion just to enter an appearance for the 24 ENV 108.
All right, I'll make a motion that we enter a notice of appearance in the Vermont Superior Court in United Church of Underhill preliminary subdivision application. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dan. Discussion?
Just to clarify, it's for just for monitoring purposes only.
That's helpful. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0. Okay, what's next?
Energy
You're all set?
Committee,
for your
yes, I'm
items?
all
Okay.
set.
Next is the Energy Committee.
Okay, thank you for having us and participating in the long-running saga of the Town Hall PV ARPA project. It's been going on now for quite a while. I think we're at season 3, episode 4 or something like that. But so we thought we'd try to come back and see if we can make a little headway here. As you recall, the last time we were here, we discussed a couple of options, and you said we should get additional information and come back to the board. We did that, and our initial response had been, after it became apparent that the Moores were looking for a different kind of arrangement. We had originally thought and been working for a long time with the rec committee and with Brad and others on the assumption that they were looking for a pavilion kind of structure, not unlike, although different scale, at the Riverside Park down here, but a smaller version or something like that. And that would be very compatible with locating solar on it. We had been interested in locating solar in Moore Park for a variety of reasons, including the opportunities it had for actually recreation opportunities there, plus the showcasing the solar installation as a major sort of educational tool in addition to the power that it would actually produce. So we pursued that for quite a while, and then at a meeting last October, September, something like that, we determined that the Moores were not interested in doing a pavilion of that sort or a canopy of that sort. We're looking for a more bandstand kind of arrangement. that would be totally incompatible with solar. So we went sort of back to the drawing boards. At the time, we were thinking perhaps the best solution would be locating solar on the town hall roof, actually a roof mount arrangement, and we did pursue that. Got information on it, and that would be consistent with the original ARPA allocation that we had been talking about, which is now no longer ARPA. We're back to sort of standard budget process, whatever we do with that. And in the process of discussing this, we felt it would be really, we kind of looked at the piece that we had in front of us, and we thought we would be really remiss not to bring to the board the possibility of sort of rebooting the canopy idea for Moore Park, mostly because of what it buys in terms of actual opportunities for recreation. Because with the new bandstand configuration associated with the Moore gazebo, that would not be suitable for a lot of things like, you know, shelter for picnicking or shelter for changing skates and providing service for the ice rink and so on and so forth. So we decided that it really made sense for us to come back to the board and bring that in, because it's a little bit more expensive than obviously just roof mounting. On the other hand, there is a very substantial rebate, as it were, like a 30%. The town has access to a 30% reduction as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. So it would bring it very close to what we'd originally been talking about before. So we really felt that we really should bring that in. Unfortunately, we don't know. We've been kind of left out of the process with the Moores thinking where they wanted to locate and exactly what kind of design they wanted to look at. We've been trying to pursue that and get information on that. We have not yet succeeded in doing that. But at the time when Brad and I guess Seth at the time was working with the rec committee, handling it for them, we located a site toward the back of the park that would be a great place for a structure of this sort. It would be immediately accessible to the parking lot, immediately accessible to the ice rink. It would provide shelter for summer activities and warm weather activities. So it would be a big asset for the community, in addition to the solar showcasing and in addition to the solar power that would be produced. So we felt it was incumbent on us really to bring that back to the board rather than just say, okay, throw it on top of the roof and leave it at that, because we think that it would be, the cost would be a little higher, but with the rebate, not much. And we felt that it would buy the town so much more by doing that. So we put together a brief outline proposal that sort of says, this is what we like best. If we feel we can't do that, we do believe that the roof mount, we reached out to Building Energy. Building Energy has indicated, we haven't gotten a formal bid because we haven't nailed it down yet, but indicated that for basically the 50,000 that would be consistent with the original ARPA allocation, they could, you know, do a roughly 14.5 kW installation on the roof of Town Hall. It would be a good location for hooking up and provide significant power, but would not buy all the other things that this would do. So I would like to proceed with this if the board thinks that it's a good idea. We know that money is tight, and we certainly respect all of what the board's trying to do, but we do believe that this would be a real asset and follow through on the recommendation of the ARPA committee that we pursue. This was the only renewable energy project. We had several options available, and this was the one that they felt we ought to pursue. So that's where we stand.
Thank you very much. You obviously have put a tremendous amount of work into this, and the different versions have been, I know you've been through your paces on this. I really like the concept of the pavilion over at Moore Park. I think that, for me, just that rings right to me. But I want to hear from others, obviously, their thoughts.
I like the looks of the solar canopy. But I want one at my house.
I know, that's what we're hoping, actually. That's why we want it out there.
But, location is important.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering where that might be, especially given the pavilion that is going to be built by the Moores. I think it would be a good addition. And I would be curious about I know that it's an investment. I have solar myself, and I'm, enjoying some payback, but it takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be interested in the long-term, benefit, but also not only for the project, but to your point, to teach people that, this is a good thing that is an investment. It's not just a nice thing to have. It gives you something. So I'd be curious about the location.
We did include, when Brad and Seth and I were looking at this, Brad actually put together a map based on the Natural Resource Atlas. We included that in the in your packet that showed the location. We walked all through the park, and this is essentially the location. We would need to refine that and also deal with orientation issues for, both the access to the rink and to the parking lot and for solar access. So we would want to refine that as we got a little further down the line. And of course, we need to find out what the Moore's plans are. I mean, obviously this could come a cropper if this goes wrong, and we don't know what that is right now.
That's the only thing that kind of caught my eye, as well as two different style buildings, right? What the Moores, if you remember the rendering that they provided, was a very traditional kind of New England-y type pavilion structure, and this being a little bit more New Age modern. Mm-hmm. I like it. One thing I learned I'm talking to Steve today, and I think it's important that you all understand, is like, when you look at the picture in your packet of the solar canopy, the idea would be to, as you're looking at it, so it's a slant roof, and you've got a high side and a low side. The idea was to showcase the low side so you see the panels. So it would not be the reverse.
Wouldn't be looking at the structural support. You'd be seeing the actual PV.
So you'd be looking at it like this, like the picture shows.
That's the southern exposure as well.
And that is the southern exposure on that side of the road.
But I think often people have these and they drive in on the high side, right? Like it was a tool shed type thing, but the panels are on the back, right? So some people don't care if they see the panels. They'd probably rather not see them.
Right.
But in this case, they want to make sure the people see them. So you'd be showcasing or fronting the low side of the canopy.
But that would also be a southern exposure toward Pleasant Valley.
Obviously, but I'm just saying, if I were going to put one of these up at my house, I would have it so the high side, I was driving in the high side and not seeing the panels.
Exactly.
But this is the opposite.
Right.
Okay.
So we all know panels face south. So, well, try to.
Right. We do our best.
So the business case of this project is working to obtain basically grant dollars, an IRS contribution.
And
are we eligible for that?
Yes,
as a
we
municipal
are.
Entity?
Apparently there was a modification to the IRA. It was previously a straight up tax rebate, which of course the town would not be, but that was modified to allow public facilities to take advantage of it. And so that becomes a 30% rebate for us to do that. And of course there would be ultimately, that savings, and we've requested and just received a full year's of electric bills. So we'll additionally provide that analysis as well. And of course, if we ever decide we want to, and the Energy Committee would love it, if we decide we want to go to to EV charging, for example, and that sort of thing, this would provide a real resource for the town for supplementing. We'd basically be getting free. All our electricity is free off of these, and we get some already off of the Beartown Array, and this would be additional to that.
Do you know, is the 30% payment, is that within the first year?
It's a capital. It's the so it's basically a capital rebate, I believe. Do you know, Steve? I think it works the same way as like my EV car. I basically, they just took the price off the top, and the supplier took the vendor took the price off. So it may very well could even work that way. That when I bought my bolts, Chevy took the price off the top, and I paid less.
Okay, because the timing on this is important in terms of what we put in the budget. Because my understanding, if we put this in the budget, Jen, this would have to be the voters would have to vote on this, correct? Yeah, help me.
If you put it in the budget, then essentially the voters do vote on it when they vote to approve the budget. You could choose to put it in the warning and not in the budget, but you would do one or the other.
Okay, I thought you had a note in here that said on a capital expense, it would have to be, maybe I just misread that. Just trying to look quickly in the budget if I could find it. But we can put it either in the budget or we can do it as a voter warning.
Correct.
Piece. Okay. This presentation gives us something to put in the budget so that we can have that discussion and debate about what we do with it.
Exactly.
So I really appreciate all the work, because we've talked in the last meeting about the solar initiative and what should we put in. So this really helps us move forward with a discussion on what to do next.
That's great. And we will be additionally, I guess what Steve just received the additional electric bills, and we'll also pursue, if you want us to pursue this, we'll also try to find out more information about the Moore's plans. And so we'll be able to get, solid information to everyone, because if the pavilion is going on one side and we're going on the other side, these two things need not be in any kind of clash or something like that. So I think that it's very possible they could work very well together. They're providing it two very different functions.
Any other comments or questions?
No.
And I think the next steps for us are that we will work this into the budget and then have that debate about what we're seeing for a bottom line and how we move forward. But this essentially takes us to the next step with the solar project.
And we will get that additional information to you and anything we can do to facilitate this.
Excellent. There's no action to be taken, but we'll move this into the next version 5 of the budget.
I think it's still season 3, but I think we'll go to episode 4 or something.
Exactly. And then on our side, it's the sequel.
And that would be by next week, correct, Jen?
Yes.
The next round of the budget. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much for all your work.
Thanks so much.
Very appreciative.
Be in touch. Thanks.
Okay, next on our agenda is a debrief of the Underhill-Jericho Fire Department budget.
Do you want to lead off, Maureen, and I can join in?
Sure. It was a great meeting with one member of the Jericho Selectboard, and then Matt from the fire department, and then Dan and myself. The town administrator from Jericho and Brad joined us as well. So we kind of walked through the cover letter that's here of some of the areas of what they saw in the 23-24 year, what they're anticipating then needing to change for next year. And the overall, I think sort of summary is that there is quite a few increases in the budget that are kind of just the cost of doing business. It seems like there's a lot of stuff that's not really discretionary increases. It's just the cost of materials and equipment and trainings. None of the prices are going down, from what it sounds like. One specific item that they did talk about is an issue of truck purchase that has been somewhat delayed in terms of they have like the chassis built, but the body of it's not built. And so the chassis is like sitting there purchased, but they don't have a body to put on it yet. It sounds not ideal. But there's $88,000 from the capital reserve that they're going to be moving into the budget to cover the cost of this next round of truck stuff. Sorry, can you hear me okay? Okay. And then there's also, in addition to that 88,000 that's from the capital reserve, there's also an additional $40,000 from the operating fund that's a surplus. And so that specific amount is something that we had talked about, that because it's coming from the surplus, it will decrease the amount requested from the towns for the budget. But then that also then means that like the following year, there'll be no surplus to offset. And so that was one of the things that Dan and I talked with Matt about, whether we split the amount of that surplus over the course of 2 years, rather than having it feel artificially low this year, and then there's an even bigger jump next year. So when Matt comes next week to present, he's going to kind of give us two different versions. So then both full select boards will have the opportunity to review it and discuss it. But all told, I think he's being very responsible and trying really hard to be as kind of cost conscious, but effective as he can with the budget dollars. And so it was a very good meeting, and I think that covers a lot of it. Dan, is there any other stuff you wanted to add?
Thank you, Maureen. That was
Yeah.
good. It's interesting how the two towns will vote on this, and because there are some interesting variables that could happen. Jericho is going to a full Australian ballot for all of their budget items next year. I think they voted on that last year. So their town meeting is basically, a lot of it's taken away. And the second thing is Jericho itemizes various parts of their budget. We vote on the town budget or the select board budget, and then the highway budget. And they vote separately on the library, on the fire department, on the town budget. I don't know if they separate out the highway budget or not. But anyway, it's important. Somebody could vote for the town budget, but not vote for the fire department. And they won't know the answer to that until the ballots are counted at the end of the day. And so if the budget gets voted down, we were asking Matt, well, what would you cut? And looking at the all the items, like Maureen said, it's the cost of doing business. I mean, you have to have hoses if you're going to have fire engines. You've got to have tires. You've got to have all these things, and you have to have insurance, and you have to have this and that. He said he would have to cut the full-time staff. That's the only thing he could cut. And the message would be then is that if we would cut that, there would be a severe lack of first responders during the day. And it would put, and we asked Matt to spell that out, specifically so that people know what they're voting for and what they're voting against. So that's somewhat the quandary of having it separated out. In Underhill, we include it as part of our budget. It's not really negotiable from the floor, but there can certainly be questions and answers given. I mean, the amount isn't negotiable it's just a part of the whole thing. So there's interesting twists and turns with that. You know, who knows what would happen? But clear communication will help people be able to make clear decisions, I believe.
Can I just ask a question? I'm just curious if I didn't know that piece about Jericho and it being separate. If they voted, I don't pay attention to Jericho. If they voted it down, would that mean that they would continue to fund it based on the prior year? Or does it mean they don't pay the fire department anything? How does that work?
I assume that's the way you'd have to proceed. Like Sherry's always said, if a budget gets knocked down, you run off last fiscal year's budget until you figure it out.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it would be but really this budget to me is the big one here is basically you have, you know, the 100,000 they're putting into the capital loan payments. You know, that's what it all sugars down to, is the extra 100,000 or 104,000 into and that's for the new engine, right? So the surplus, they had planned on using 40,000, I think it was, in surplus this year for the ladder truck, and the ladder truck thing fell through. So I think they'd always planned to use a little bit of transfer from the reserves, but I think it's a little extra this year to since they had extra that they didn't use, and the fact that the new capital purchases they're up significantly. You can see it on the line here. We've been going 88,000. Then all of a sudden last year it went to 182, and now we're up to 286. So that's where the rubber meets the road. All the rest of it is like there's no substantial changes at all. I don't think, but that's where it's all at. Just like, you know, fire trucks get old and they're expensive. But I did include in your packet, just for Maureen's sake and everyone else's, is the fire protection agreement that we signed with Jericho. And I've never seen, I don't even know if Jericho knows this exists, but it was signed back in 1997. And basically it kind of states that, you know, that we get together every year to set the split. But I think we're in this agreement that we're going to use the census numbers. So that's where our split comes from. But I highlighted the portion that says each appropriation shall be included in each town's annual budgets for the voter approval. And I guess, you know, when I read that, I think about it being included in just what it says, in the budget. But maybe it's just a play on words here, is singling it out in a question on the warning, still in the budget, but it's a separate item. That's what it just doesn't seem fair that we do it one way and then they decide to. And actually, when you get their tax bill, I don't know if you guys remember this, they said that they partition out in their tax bill, okay, this is what you have general fund, this is highway fund, this is how much of your taxes, the rate actually, they have multiple rates. And they say, okay, this is how much you're paying the fire department, this is how much you're paying the library. They have like a list of 12 things.
Wow.
Where we just have a municipal rate and an education rate, right? They parse it all out. So it's almost like, you know, it's their choice, but it's almost like they're singling out these entities, or maybe making people more aware of where their money's going, I guess. Let's just hope that it doesn't get voted down over there.
So our next steps are.
Well, so if you have any questions, I told Matt that I would relay that to him. If we're good and Jericho's good, then I would propose next Thursday on the 19th. I can't remember who came or who went where last year. Seems like we went to Jericho. I think we went to Jericho, didn't we? I'll find out, but we should kind of alternate. Don't you agree?
So we would do it that early?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Let's get it. I think we're kind of a little bit on the late side, actually.
Okay.
I think last year we might have done it the first week of December. You're just accepting the budget, so then at least we've got a number we can plug in and keep moving. And I really think, Matt's always done a good job with the budget, and but things are expensive. It's I just can't believe it myself.
The cost of the trucks is unbelievable, but that just is what it is.
Like you said, Matt does a great job putting the budget together and going through the mental gyrations of what to put in front of us. So I think he's gone through the hard part, and there's not really much more for us to do, quite honestly. All right, so you'll proceed with finding out when the meeting is.
Right. Well, we'll figure out if we're going to have it here, we're going to go there, and then we're still going to continue to, because we have more business to do, and perhaps we could meet a little early, maybe before they start their meeting. I don't know.
So they're also meeting next Thursday?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. So the problem is we need to we want to run another AP warrant so we can close out the books for the calendar year and the 1099s. And then, a few other items for business. So we're going to have a meeting. But if we could, if they could pop up here before our meeting or maybe a little early, I'll propose that. Okay. I don't know if it works. That would be helpful. Like maybe we could do a 5:30 thing.
Does that work for everybody?
Works for me, I believe.
I'm just double checking. I think I can do early.
I can make 5:30 on the 19th.
I mean, it should just be a formality, the whole thing. Yep. Even if it was at 6, it kind of would be ideal if it was their turn to come here, because then we just continue the meeting. But I'll figure all that out.
Okay. Next
I would be able to do 5:30, by the way. That would be fine.
Okay.
All right, great. There's 3 of us can. Right, next. Just try to push us along.
Yeah.
Part-time planner position, potential candidate.
Jennifer, put together.
I put together a letter, which is representative of after the meeting that we had with the Larry Loack, and that letter is I signed it, but it was Dan and Maureen and Brian that met with him, and we talked about the position, and it was very unanimous that the skill set that he has and his experience specifically with Bolton and Charlotte, and he's recently retired. What he's looking for as far as time and commitment, his ability to jump right in and do the things that we're looking for him to do for the Planning Commission would be a great fit. And we had the money in the budget. And so the group, I'm just the representative of the group, but I can let Maureen and Dan say more to it. But it was pretty unanimous that they wanted to recommend that the board moves forward with offering him this part-time temporary position. Dan?
And this is a contract position versus an employee, correct?
He would be an employee, but it'd be a part-time temporary employee.
All right.
No benefits.
And I believe there would be a sunset to it unless mutually we would concur.
Yeah. And so it would be, up to 15 hours a week for 6 months. And then it would be, reevaluate where things are at. I think it was the hope of the Planning Commission that during this period of time, Larry would not only be able to help get things caught up, but that he would also be able to kind of give a clear picture of what would be helpful to have going forward. And is it could it continue as a part-time position? And once things are caught up, could it be, fewer hours? And I think it seemed like Brian felt like, he would be in a good position to be able to tell them that after 6 months, but that things could be caught up in that amount of time.
So we have the flexibility for the arrangement to reduce hours in the future based on what our need is.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead, Dan.
I appreciated Jennifer's write-up and told her that. It was good with accuracy and also, the emotional feel of the room as we were doing it. Larry has, he comes with a load of experience, and he also has a good idea of the upside of people's planning initiative in towns, and he also has a perspective on the downside, on what problems develop with that. I noted especially with him that we have a very good town plan that was put together by with a lot of wisdom, and he would be able to give us reflection as to where we are with that plan. And especially, I told him that the far right column, where different groups are supposed to be accountable or at least have watchful eyes. Select board's in it a lot, and I think that because of our busyness, we don't often do that. And all of a sudden, 7 years later, we have a new town plan. Oh, we completely ignored this for 7 years. And I made a special request, if he is hired in this position, that he would give us some reflection as to what we need to have on our table and on our plate. So it is, I am very enthused about having him possibly on board, if we can work it out.
Maureen?
Yeah, I agree. I think, as Jennifer said, it really was unanimous within the room. And it was great that Brian was able to be there and share kind of some of his perspective from the Planning Commission of what they have, what they're going to be needing moving forward and where there can be help on kind of catching up on the backlog. And I think his experience and kind of depth of knowledge on planning and with the Regional Planning Commission and kind of some of other towns of similar size and places like Bolton and Charlotte that are obviously have their differences. He really was able to communicate the way that he has also tried to focus on like how to communicate what the Planning Commission is doing and what his job as a town planner has been, and sharing that with the public in a way that the public can really understand, and how important that is in the role of getting approval and buy-in from town members for different projects. And I think that's really valuable. He just seems like he's going to be a great fit for the town. So I really do recommend that we move forward with him. And I think we'd be really lucky to have him, especially since he is only interested in a pretty finite role. I think that's going to be a good fit for us to see, kind of get over the hump and then see what we need moving forward.
Thank you, Maureen, and thank you, Dan, for sitting in on the meeting and reporting back. My question is related to process. I don't want to slow the train down here. Typically, we all interview a new employee coming in. I also don't want to, I trust the wisdom of Dan and Maureen to have vetted this. And if we can bring him on for a 6-month period, and at the end of the 6 month, we could end it. I'm asking that as a question.
Yeah, it would be, I would write up a 6-month contract.
I'm comfortable moving forward then and just try it out for 6 months, see how it goes. With skipping the step of going through an extra interview process.
I think that's wise, especially this time of year when things slow down anyway, get it out there. And given the fact that it's a 6-month plan, we will have time, if we want to extend it, we will have time for a thorough interview as we also see what he's done and how he's contributed.
Exactly.
And I don't have a doubt that his contribution will be appreciated.
I'm gonna put the trust in Brian and you guys for the process of interviewing, and then he'll be tested out over a 6-month period. And if it works, awesome, then we'll continue on. If it doesn't, we can pivot.
I think it would be appropriate for you guys to make a motion to at least have me draft up a contract for you to somebody has to review it, and for me to go ahead and do check some references. Because I waited.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we authorize Jennifer to check references and also to draft a contract for a 6-month work period.
A second.
Thank you, Maureen. She's quick to the gun on that one. Any discussion?
And at the rate, did you want to say what the rate was?
Yeah, at the rate that I put in there.
That's all public information.
Okay. Yep, I'll put the rate at $30 an hour for up to 15 hours a week for 6 months.
Okay.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0.
Okay.
Great work, everybody.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, that brings us to the fiscal year 26 budget, version 4.
All right, we are getting close, people. Once my there we go. Okay, version 4. I'm going to go down my note list again, starting. The first thing is line 52. The color scheme on this one is like a peachy color. So the first thing is line 52, which is page 2. You're going to see use of surplus. That is, there's nothing in there. What I'd like to do is go through the entire budget and then do this last because I have a whole thing I'd like to discuss about use of surplus. So moving on to the next line, it's number 58, which is the HRA. That number was adjusted slightly. That's because the real numbers came in from the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan for next year. So those have been put in at a 75% utilization rate. So it's actually a decrease. And the reason that that's a decrease, I'm not going to go into it and waste our time this late in the evening, but the deductibles are half of what they were last year. So even if all of the employees who are on the census used all of the HRA, from one year to the next, the deductible is half. It's $3,000 and $6,000 instead of $5,500 and $11,000. So that's the reason that that's lower. The next line item is, and you're going to see these changes only because the new insurance numbers were put in here. So line 76, which is the admin line for payroll, taxes, and benefits. That one is a change, and that's 100% based on the change of the medical costs. Same thing for line 83, which is the town clerk and treasurer for the insurance opt-out. If we have an employee on our census, and these numbers, by the way, could change between now and January, because our employees have what's called the open enrollment period. If we have an employee who has a spouse who has a health insurance plan, then the employee would like to go on their spouse's plan or switch from their spouse's plan back to ours. Those are things that change that that we don't have control over those things. So this is based on our current census. It could change, but based on our current plan, if an employee has a qualified plan through their spouse or partner or whatever, then they receive from the town of Underhill a somewhat equivalent benefit, which is called payment in lieu of insurance. So the example here is in that town clerk treasurer line that says insurance opt-out. So that employee receives basically an increase in their salary for that amount. And then the VEMR's contribution also is added onto that. So that's where that number comes into play. And you'll see that there on line 83. Line 93, which is the finance human resource, same thing. The increase is based on the increase in medical insurance. And also medical insurance is different for different people depending on whether they're a one person, a two person, or a family insurance plan. Stop me if you have questions. The next one is line 103, same thing. This is the assessor line, same thing. That's the insurance opt-out for the assessing department. Moving on to line 112, which is the building maintenance for this building that you're in right now. This was for the painting of the exterior of the building, and that was based on the real quotes. Didn't have that number before now, but I've got the 4 quotes in. So that's the exterior of this town hall building. Building maintenance, line 112, that changed slightly. The number that was in there, the increase, the postal meter and the copier leases changed slightly during the year, this year, so that went up slightly. Line 117, we'll probably come back to that next week slightly again, because that's the technical expenses, and we're still adjusting that. But the number that you see there, the 61,914, represents the tech group as we understood it last week. Plus, Patty had asked that we add a 15% kind of contingency. And just to give you an idea of when that contingency makes sense is if we go forward with this planner position, and Larry accepts and everything goes fine, then we also need to look at having a laptop for him. So because we would probably want him to be using a town hardware and not a personal hardware when he's doing work for us. So, that's adding a few $1,000s. So having contingencies in there takes into account or helps us when we have those kinds of things that pop up or a computer breaks or whatever. Moving down to the post office, line 126. We now have actual quotes for the painting of the exterior of the post office. I don't have specific costs, quotes yet for the repairs. Some of the painting quotes, actually all the painting quotes that I have include some replacement of some of the rotting shingles, But that one section of the post office where it's in the corner, if you drive by, you'll see it, where the supports underneath the deck there in the corner are completely rotted out. There's a hole there and you could put your hand right through it. My guess is that corner is going to have jacks put in and a new post and some stuff done there. So I don't know what to put for that. I put in 7,000.
I think that's a pretty good guess.
I think it's a good guess based on some recent construction I've been participating in. So I think it's a pretty good number. The schoolhouse, still don't have the roof quotes, but sticking with the number that we had from Roger from the last meeting. Moving down to the next line, which is 166. So skipping that next page. Oh, I will tell you, let's go back for 1 sec. Under line 146, which is traffic calming and safety initiatives, I'm wondering if that might be a good place to add the $500 burn permit. Safety, because it's right below the sheriff and it's traffic calming and safety. Would burn permits fit in there pretty well? And if so, I will add that to the next one.
It's also a purchased service.
Correct.
So I think that makes sense too.
Okay. So that will be in the next version. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't forget that one. Then skipping to the next page. So this is important. So line 166, the planning and zoning salary line. So what we're looking at currently is not having a full-time planning and zoning administrator. So this number here takes into account having part-time planning administrator and the contract position with CCRPC. If between now and July that changes, then we will have to adjust accordingly. But this number here would take into account both of those positions. So you're looking at, it's a big number there, that 111, but we wouldn't be paying benefits for either of those positions because the CCRPC would be a contract position where we'd be paying an hourly rate to CCRPC, and the planning administration job is just a hourly job.
Yeah, Jen, if we look at the total cost on line 176 for planning and zoning, look at that line for the proposed budget for 26, 121,000.
Yep.
And contrast that with years past. It seems high.
Well, we haven't had this position filled now for 3 years, so we've had it budgeted, but we've had no numbers in there. So if you look back, if you look on there, you'll see the actuals, there's nothing, there's really nothing there.
Budget. I'm looking at budget though.
The budget numbers, we've had.
It seems like we're a little high. It was 110 and 97, the 2 years we budgeted.
So I did these based on kind of guesstimates of, I did a real number with what we're talking about, the $30 an hour times 15, that's a real number. And then I looked at an estimate for the planning.
Through the Chittenden County Regional.
Yeah, the zoning. I don't know. I can certainly maybe sit down with Brad this week and we can look at that number and see if we can if that number makes sense. But I did it based on kind of my guesstimate of what we would be paying an hourly rate for a zoning administrator, and then understanding that we're basically going to be paying CCRPC a premium for that in order for them to be doing all the hiring and paying the benefits of this person.
I think it's going to be in the 70 range.
That was what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can bring that closer to the 110 area.
Well, because this is also the upper bounds of the amount. I'm assuming, Jennifer, that you figured it was like the $15, or the $30 an hour for 15 hours. But it sounds like the job is probably not going to be 15 hours a week every week for 6 months. So the actual number will be quite a bit lower than that, is my guess. That's like the upper bounds of what is even theoretically possible.
Yeah.
And don't forget, there's legal fees in here. There's advertising. There's Chittenden County Regional Planning dues. all these other items are in there that are not employee related, right? That's just where they go. So why the 111 is maybe a little on the high side, we can figure that out.
I think I can sit down and look at it again for the next version. Because like you said, it's not, it may be up to 15 hours a week for the planning job now, but this isn't till next July. So by then we should have things ironed out. We should be caught up.
Right. By the time
We
we
could
get
probably do it
there.
at 10.
Yep.
So let me take a look at
Okay.
that for version 4.
Okay. Thank you.
And maybe I can talk to CCRPC and see if they have a,
Hey, we can just
a closer
ask them
number.
right up, right, and say, you know,
Straight
what are
up.
we looking at?
Yeah.
Tell us what it is.
Because I don't know, because, you know, if we were paying someone, you know, $30 to $40 an hour plus benefits, you know, that's kind of the
But
way I
I
look at it.
just did the math a second ago here on you know, this Larry. I mean, if you had it at $30 an hour times, you said 15 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
That's $450 times, and I'm not counting taxes,
Right,
obviously. But say for 25 weeks, that's 11 grand, you know, for half a year. So it's really not a huge amount of money for.
Yeah, I want to see that total.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It's the CCRPC we got to pin down. Yep, we'll pin them down.
The mapping line, 171, I don't have a number there yet.
We're going to have to add something in
But-
there. I'll get some prices on what, so we haven't updated our parcel maps in a long time, since the last time I did it in 2018, I think. So we're quite a few years behind. The state is doing some mapping, so we're not totally behind since then. There are some parcels that have been added, but it's not consistent. That really needs to get updated. Especially, it would be nice before Amanda does her, goes through her statistical reappraisal. So I'll come up with a number for next time for that.
Okay, then moving down to the highway, there's several items here to discuss. Line 223, again, payroll taxes benefits. That's the same thing that we were talking about. That's the medical insurance. So that is what it is. Line 227, Russ and I met and went through numbers again. And first of all, I feel really badly that Russ is still here tonight because he's got to be bleary-eyed since I heard him go by this morning at 5 a.m. But we talked about line 227 specifically as relates to the ash trees. We still haven't put anything in the budget for this, and we can, talk to Don Toby again, but I think the bottom line is that we need to start addressing these trees. So Russ and I talked about putting in, several days worth of, I forget how many days this was representative of, but did we say a week worth, 5 days worth of tree removal estimate for this year? And then if we look at that each year, or if we're forced to ramp it up, we will, but at least we have something in the budget to specifically address the ash trees. So that's what that line is. Line 230, there was discussion last week about putting money into the budget for class 4 roads, and respectfully, Russ and the town office staff and I talked about this. And we think that without having a plan about the town, who's going to pay for it and what's going into the class 4 roads, that, if there's projects that happen, they should be happening on a case-by-case basis. We have materials at the highway department that, and a staff that is willing to, do these jobs when they come up, but to earmark money in our budget for something that we don't really have a policy for, might put us in a uncomfortable, and a position that we don't want to be in, to put that into the budget. But obviously we defer to you. So, there have been projects that come up on class 4 roads every year, and we manage them in our existing budget. We don't add those on specifically.
So the 30,000 on 230 essentially has baked in some
Whatever.
activity for that in the event we need to spend some dollars.
Correct.
Because not all class 4 roads are the same. Like Stevensville is a clear case of a class 4 road that needs to be maintained because there's so much traffic on it.
But you grade that road anyway. It's kind of baked into the thing.
Just
We
as-
have extra gravel. If we need gravel, it's not like it's going to bust us to throw a couple loads here and there, or to even grade some of these roads, like even the Butler Road. I don't know when the last time, you've probably never seen it graded, but that was in the class 4 road committee report, maybe just do one grading and, when it's dry in the spring.
And that's not something that we need to add.
No.
Add to our budget.
Okay, but it's baked into essentially line 230.
Correct.
It's baked into everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the grader's run by an employee whose
time is in the highway
it's
department.
in all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
If I'm misrepresenting, speak up. Okay, then line 235, you see the increase of 27,715. That is the addition of the hydraulic part for the excavator so that they can run the machine with the mower head and be able to use both hands and not have to hold the button the whole time. And I believe those were the only changes in here. So this brings me to my last piece. You'll see that this is the first time.
Jen, 1 sec.
Yeah.
One thing that I have not been able to get a price on is from the crack sealing guy.
Oh.
Because I don't know if he doesn't work in the winter.
Hold on. What was that contract we signed?
It was a 3-year contract.
Ended
this year.
Okay.
Now, if we wanted to leave it at 26 and we only did $26,000 worth of.
Right.
That's
why it's highlighted in yellow, because we didn't have a quote yet.
So we either leave it at 26 and that's what money we have.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Shade. Is that
Shade, yeah.
And we tell him to stop when he hits 26.
Well, yeah. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
Okay.
Or lower it and put it to 20 and then we stop at 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we could even, I don't know.
You want me to try them or?
I've tried them twice, but and emailed them too, and
No answer.
I don't know if they take the winter off.
Maybe.
So right now, we're at a 7.8% increase.
No. So right now we are at a 13%
25.
increase. So this is what I wanted to bring to everybody's attention.
I'm looking at line 279. Is that a subset? What is line 279?
Look here.
Is that just highway?
Maureen, I texted you. I don't know if you've looked at your phone,
Oh,
but
yeah, sorry. I'm on my phone, so I'm going to turn the camera off so I can look at what you sent me.
Okay.
Thanks.
Something new.
Mm-hmm. My today creation. I was at a seminar today, so I created this. So if you look at the one that says surplus recommendation, if you look at that top diagram, that is version 4, the one we just went through. And that represents the 7 cents would be the tax rate increase.
What are we looking at?
This one right here.
Okay.
If you look at the top chart,
Top table?
the top table, you'll see 13.25. That would be the increase over last year's rate, municipal tax rate, with the budget as it stands at version 4. So that's a 7 cent increase. And what I want you to notice is that you'll see at the top in green, you'll see non-tax revenue at 264,000. if we have a low number of non-tax revenue, that means in order to meet our expenses, the revenue has to come from somewhere. It's going to either come from a loan, debt, or it can come from surplus, or it can be use of reserves.
Mhm.
Well, we're not using reserves. We're in the building reserve phase of our budgeting. However, we have a sizable surplus from fiscal year 24 due to over budgeting, mostly. If we were to apply some of that surplus, you can look at the other page, which you'll see called surplus calculation. Based on the current version 4, our surplus is 451,000 to use for future of the town of Underhill, or the benefit of the town of Underhill. So that's what we have, 450,000. That could change depending on the budget that we're looking at. But let's just assume for our illustration purposes right now that we have $450,000 in surplus to use. Go back to your other chart. My recommendation is that we take 100,000 of that surplus and ask the voters in a warning if it should go into our contingency reserves. Again, building reserves. We're also putting 100,000 into our highway reserves for the next 5 years, as was voted on last year. Then take that extra $350,000 surplus and give it back to the voters to reduce taxes next year. That would be my recommendation, because the voters paid their taxes last year, most of us included, and we overpaid because there was extra money. So now take that money and lower the taxes for the next year. So if you were to take that 350,000, you can look at my table number 2 at the bottom. Looking at our exact budget now, if you took that 350,000 and you put that into that use of surplus revenue line, you'll see that non-tax revenue goes up from 264 to 614,000, which therefore reduces the amount of money we need to pay in taxes, which lowers the tax rate to under 2% or a penny.
Mhm.
And I think right now we're in a time where the residents of Underhill, and generally, I think most towns in Vermont, are really stressed out and frustrated about money. Our taxes have gone up largely because of education taxes. But if you look at the fire department going up, and you look at the library going up, and the park going up, and all of these things, everything we're doing is costing more. So it only makes sense for us to take that money and give it back to the taxpayers to reduce taxes. So that's my recommendation.
We knew we were going to take a little bit of a hit because we took that $100,000 in, revenue that we received, not by taxes, but from the grants or the
supplemental highway income.
Yeah, the highway, why am I losing it here? The state aid to highways.
Yeah.
State aid to highways, right? So the $100,000, we knew we were going to take a hit, and we're putting a little bit more money into capital this year because of the valley, and it's a little more of an expensive project, so might be an extra 100 there. You take that and the 100 that we're have to make up, there's your increase right there.
Yeah.
I think that'll plane out eventually when we wean off of not getting used to the state aid to highways, right? We're not even going to miss it. But next year, we're probably going to have to think about, well, we might not be able to spend quite as much money on a capital project. Might have to tone down a little bit. And then we've got Bridge 7 to think about and those sorts of things. So I think Jennifer's right, though. People are sick of just paying more and more.
So,
That's what I'm saying. But your capital's up, right, from this year a little bit compared to what it was this year, right? We're at 340 for the Pleasant Valley versus the 200 we budgeted for Irish. you might have to drop that back down next year and then.
And the difference is that we're still putting 200,000 into our reserves.
Right.
So, I mean, we're putting that 100,000 for the supplemental highway income. And then we're also taking 100,000 from that surplus. So we're continuing to build our coffers, which we can then draw off of if we need to, because our capitals is too high and we're not getting grants or whatever. But I think the right thing to do for the residents of the town is to.
Sherry and I had a discussion, and I'm not taking away from what you said. I think it's a great idea. But here's another, like, not to throw a wrench in it, but here's another little something you could think about, right? We've got Bridge 7 coming down the pike. And, say you took, we're putting 100,000 into reserves for just into the general fund, right? But say you thought about, well, maybe we could take another 100 and stick it away in highway reserves in anticipation of Bridge 7. If you built up your reserves enough in the highway for Bridge 7, and we got the grant, it's possible you might be able to do that without the bond. You might be able to take like a 5-year note to cover the balance to get the bridge done. And the only reason I'm saying this is we all went to the town garage and we're looking at the roof and all that stuff. And if things progress with the fire department, then wanting a separate station, and maybe they would put a bay on the garage, and you wanted to do an expansion on the garage, that's a bond issue, right? That's a bond thing versus the bridge. Although I did a little research looking at like town of Huntington, for example, which I think is similar to us. Oh my God, they had
half a dozen
15,
bonds?
Yeah, 15 bonds. It was crazy, all staggered out, but they have a lot of bridges. A lot of those were all for bridges. Anyway.
I understand your point, but I feel like you can break it all up and you can, sock it away here and there, but it's not, I feel like the right thing to do is, we over budgeted. So we took too much money from our residents. Okay, we all paid too much money in taxes. We should get a break.
Give it back.
Give it back to the residents. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think it's our job and the select board's job to think about next year and how we're planning for our future. That's all part of this. But I think it's a very responsible thing to do, to say some of it's going into contingency reserve, and the rest of it's going to reduce taxes next year.
And you're doing more capital than you normally would do. Like the valley is a little bit more money than you typically would do. And then you're getting another, I think the mulcher head for the excavator is also a pretty significant purchase. So you're not going to have that next year. You're not going to have maybe some of these expenses that we budgeted, like the new server, and we're switching to the cloud. So some of these things are all stacking up. I know there will always be something, but it's just.
I think our charge as the select board is to consider the surplus. Also, we need to take a hard look at all the expenses and see, is there anything we can cut? I like to start with our wish list and then whittle it down.
Yep.
And solar isn't even in here yet.
I think we're at we don't have the solar thing in here anywhere.
Right. But that will be in the next version, which is going to push this even a little higher. But we need to make those hard decisions of what's in and what's out based on these numbers.
Yep.
And then assumptions on what we're going to use for surplus.
And then I also think that you need to think about if there are other things that are part of things that you're considering for a warning, because once we get to the stage where you accept the budget and we start to have public meetings about it, if there's other things that we're talking about adding, if there's equipment and stuff like that you're going to add to the warning, my job is going to be to make it very clear to the residents, well, if you vote yes on this, here's what it's going to do to your tax rate. And so if you're looking at a 13.8% and you're not going to use the surplus, and then you're going to add, if someone votes, if the town votes yes for a piece of equipment that costs $80,000, that's going to increase another couple percent. So on to version 5.
I think people are a little bit more in a mindset this year of saying no. That's my gut
I
feeling.
mean, after last year and the property tax
Yeah.
increase on the education
Not
side.
enough.
So
People-
the education tax this year, what's it going to be? Was it 6 something?
7.
I don't
I think
I
it
don't
was
believe anything I
believe
hear at this
anything.
point, but
still significant,
it's significant.
still significant.
Yeah. I think, Jennifer, I appreciate the proposal and idea for setting it up this way, because I do think you are right. There is a lot of frustration, and I think, as Brad said, an appetite for no. And I think giving people back the money that we have, that has, that they overpaid, I think is a reasonable and right thing to do. In as much it is like also fiscally responsible of the town to be stewards of like the town dollars. So yeah, I think on to version 5, but yeah, I think this is a good idea.
So I think, just so everybody knows our timeline, we have next week, and then we're on a break till after the holidays. But I think the first week of January, we're going to have a special meeting because we're going to run out of time. Because we have to have this budget to the printer.
Yeah, so the first day we can sign, so I think it was like last year, we signed the warning early. So the 23rd, January 23rd, which is our regular meeting date, is the first day we can sign the warning. And that's the way we did it last year. And then the next day it went right to the printers. We had the town report all set up. We just enclosed the signed warning and boom, it went to the printers, and that sets us up on a good schedule. I would propose, to meet, well, the 9th is our regular meeting, 9th, 16th, and 23rd. Those 3 in a row. And not try to squeeze something in the week of New Year's. It's probably a little bit too tight.
I agree.
But you'd have this one, and this one.
Okay.
You think that's enough?
Tight.
Okay.
Let's see how next week goes.
I'll see how next week goes.
Exactly. But at least plan for the 16th at this point.
I mean, I'm happy to meet anytime. So I'm here over the holidays. I don't have any reason to not meet.
And I'll know more about the town meeting or the town report schedule as well.
And I think the board should be thinking about the whole concept of this whole
Surplus, yeah.
the surplus and the tax number and the expenses, and take your copies and mark them up, and let's really get serious about this.
Okay, good work. Yeah, go get some sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
5 a.m. That's sleeping in.
No, that's when he came by my house. He was out before that.
So 2:45, you're up. Go home. Go home. All right. Do we have any closing public comment?
Thank you, Russ.
I don't think we have anybody here.
Online?
Unless Sherry wants to say something.
I'll do your thing tomorrow. I'll do that. I'll send that.
Okay, we are closing public comment. Let's do review and approve warrants and minutes. Everything's here.
So the warrants, yep. So we've got a payroll warrant, should be the one on top.
Okay, I've got, make a motion to approve payroll warrant for check date 12/5. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's, I think I voted.
The next
Any
one.
opposed? Ayes carry 3-0. The next one in my hand is,
Let's see what you got. Just show me. the
accounts
front.
payable.
Oh, it's the
This is accounts payable for the period of November 1st through November 30th.
Yeah, this
fine?
is just, this is the direct pay stuff. The
Check warrant report
Yep.
for November 1st through November 30th, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
auto pay.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Ayes carry 3-0. Next is check warrant report for December 12th, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Dan got there first. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0. Next is warrant report for December 12th, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Dan got that one. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0. All right, that's warrants.
I don't think I printed the minutes, did I?
They're in the packet, though.
Yeah, but I didn't print one off for you to sign.
Okay.
Mind if I go and do that while
I
you're?
don't know.
Can I just ask a question? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
The last two motions you made, they sounded identical as far as I could tell. They were both for December 12th. I wonder if that is a mistake.
Yeah, one's AP warrant number 1, one's AP warrant number 2.
Thank you.
Okay, so I couldn't hear the last part of that. One is AP warrants and one is something else?
It's AP warrant. There's the date 12/21 or 12/12/24-1 and 12/12/24-2. They're separate check runs.
Oh, okay. So same date and they're both AP warrants, but one is number 1 and one's number 2. Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Donna, we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, I'll see you then. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the select board meeting minutes that were in our packet. This is the meeting at the Underhill Town Garage on November 14th, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Dan got there first. Any discussion? I'm going to bring up on item 1 that instead of tired chair, just removing this. This should say tire chain purchase instead of tire chair purchase. There's one edit that I found.
Ah, good catch.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the minutes as posted with that change, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0. The next set of minutes is for November 21st. That was here at the Underhill Town Hall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Maureen got that one. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0. All right, that is 2 sets of minutes. Are there any member items, correspondence, announcements, or schedule? I think we need Brad for that. I have nothing in that category. We did talk about the schedule already.
Mm-hmm. The next meeting then is
The next meeting is next week on Thursday, which is December 19th. And then we will convene on January 9th, January 16th, and January 23rd.
and I'll plan to come in tomorrow to sign stuff of the
Okay,
things that I
great.
have voted on.
Anything else? Brad, do you have any member items in correspondence?
There was one correspondence we just got from the Air Guard, National Guard, about building a facility up on, just notice. It was just a standard notice, not that there's anything we can do or participate in. Just notice about a 400 bed facility, 78,000 square feet
Yeah.
facility in the range.
That's big.
It's big.
And they did indicate in the material that they're not planning for an increased number of personnel receiving training. So that should be the same, the status quo at the range in terms of activity.
Yeah.
It's just building a barracks
Yeah.
of a place for folks to be housed.
Yeah. So maybe it'll cut down. One good thing, it might cut down on traffic.
Yes.
And that's it. So I will get back to everybody about the meeting for next Thursday.
The time.
The time. I'll try to see if it works. I'll get a hold of Dan. I don't know is Dan going to be back? I can't remember if he.
Yes, Dan, I think gets back Saturday or Sunday from Germany.
Okay. So I will just see if he's available, and I'll check with Bob, and then I'll go back. But worst case scenario would be 6 o'clock. So.
Okay.
But I'll try to get it a little bit early. Yep.
Brett, I was going to try and stop by tomorrow to sign stuff, unless you. I'm trying to think about what time my flight gets in, but I think I can swing by town hall on my way home. What time are
we'll
you?
Be here.
Until
we're leaving. We're
3
doing our little
4?
holiday meal tomorrow, but that's not till 3. We'll be here till 2:30.
Okay. Well, then I'll do it Monday because my flight doesn't land until 2:30, so I'll come back Monday then and sign stuff.
We won't be here. Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, I can move.
Enjoy.
Adjourn.
I second.
Excellent, Maureen. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes carry 3-0. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
I won't shut down right off, Aaron. I'll wait till you're shut down.